Welcome to episode 6, I think. I should have looked that up beforehand, but I think this is episode 6 of the Love Tennis podcast. Really excited to have my good friend Chris here with us. I'm going to just turn it to you to introduce yourself a little bit, who you are, where you came from, and what you're gonna share with us today.
Yeah, so my name is Chris Nordenson. I'm a USPTA elite professional. I've taught high school, college tennis. I've been in clubs, kind of been all around teaching, love tennis, love playing tennis, love talking about tennis. So that's kind of just who I am. And today I wanted to kind of go into some mindfulness stuff because that's really popping up, because even though that they don't talk about it a lot, but some of the big players like Djokovic and those are using those techniques to help them through matches. Andy Murray too, once he went through a little bit of going with like Lendl, he started to kind of come around mentally a little bit more. So talking about that and then going into routines and where we can use routines and where we need routines in tennis, because you get into a lesson with a tennis professional, they'll teach you how to hit a ball, they'll teach you kind of all the stuff to do, but what do you do in those kind of moments where you're trying to just get everything back, where you're just trying to re-energize, your mind's going a million miles a minute because you're in this intense battle against one other person. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
kind of what I was going to talk about today.
I love it. I think, like you said, us coaches, we'd spend so much time teaching the shots and teaching the strokes and teaching the, even strategy and tactics. And this is such a huge part of the game that gets neglected by so many of us, coaches and players alike. And so I'm excited to learn from you and really dive into this, because it's something that, from personal experience, I can say it makes a difference. It can take help your game take a huge step forward. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of go over what mindfulness is, it is a way of paying attention without judgment. So we're able to know what's going on around us, what we're doing, but we're not judging ourselves for doing that. And a lot of the time we always have these judgments of that's a good shot, that's a bad shot, all of this kind of stuff. And so mindfulness is teaching you to be aware of what's going on in your head without it letting it take over, because we get on what's called autopilot mode, which our brain just automatically goes. It goes one way and that's the way we think. And we kind of need to challenge that sometimes so we don't get caught in those same things, because that's what happens. It's that old saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's what our brain does. So we really need to be aware of, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and this is how I can kind of react. So, you're choosing, you're reflecting, and then you're reflecting, then making a choice of what you want to do. But that extra second of taking that second to just, reflect and make a decision, is going to help you make better decisions, not only on the court, but, off the court. Because as always, this is, you know, just a bigger picture thing. The tennis court is a way for us to work on, life skills and things that we can take with us for the rest of our life.
Absolutely. Tennis is definitely a game for life, right? It's something with so many life lessons and so many applications to the real world. And, in this practice, back on the court, being able to think through things. And I like that you're saying without judgment is like, being able to kind of take that step back and see what's going on. That's so important as tennis players, right? Like, we don't have the opportunity to have a coach who's constantly barking at us from the sideline. And we got to be able to think through things when we're on the court as tennis players. So this is a great skill to help us take a step back, take a breath, and analyze what's going on.
Yeah, because so it'll help with nerves, it'll help with anger, frustration, getting into that zone of like, because that's what the zone is, right? You're aware of what everything's going on, but you're not overthinking it. I mean, that's what you're trying to get to, and dealing with mistakes, difficult opponents. We got the moon ballers, we got, people that just like to figure out ways to make our lives a little bit difficult on the court, and just maximizing enjoyment. And I think that part's the most important to me, is because I don't care about anything else. If you're not enjoying yourself on the court, why are you out on the court? and you want to be able to reevaluate that, because at the end of the day, it's a competition, but 99% of the people that are going to be listening to this are not going to play professionally. They're not going to make money. So we really want to make sure that we are enjoying what we're doing, because life is so short. You never know what's going to happen to your body. So you need to go out onto the court and really enjoy what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Much easier said than done. And that's from personal experience too.
That
And so
is.
before we get into like the kind of exact routines, the other thing that is really important that people forget about, which it's just so silly, people don't breathe. So when moments get tight, when we're in a battle, we forget to exhale. So we forget to kind of let that breath out, because when we let that breath out, everything else falls. And you can always see a very tense player because their shoulders will rise up here. If you're ever wondering if your opponent's nervous and they look like this, they are. So just those deep kind of exhale breaths will kind of help with that, and making sure that we're taking all the free time that we have, because again, that'll help us just get ready for that next point, because it's 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, and you've got to figure out how to get your heart rate back down pretty quickly, so that you can serve, because you can't serve when you've got dead legs, that it's very hard to do. And so like there's just two very easy, not going to spend much time on breathing, which is the first, which I do in between points whenever, just even if I have a minute, is 3 to 4 exhales. So it's just exhaling long and slow. So not like fast, but long and slow, and trying to, as you do it, feel your entire body relax. So as you let it out, you should feel your shoulders, your chest, your belly, like everything should just relax. And that's a great way after a tense moment or two to just make sure that you can reset and relax. It's very easy. The other one is a little bit more tricky, and this one I like for changeovers, and we'll talk about that again in a minute, but it's called the drop into the gap breath, which is very, very common. And so what it is it's an inhale, pause at the top. So you just hold it for just a second, and then another long exhale. And you can even see in me, like my shoulders drop. In that like 2 seconds I took, my shoulders just went down 2 inches. Your whole body will just relax. And you can do moments of that again, while you're sitting on the changeover with your feet, that's all you need to do is just take those nice deep breaths. So, very quick. So just the exhale, and then that little drop, drop into the gap breath, which is just that hold it after you inhale through the nose, and then an exhale slow and long through the mouth.
That does feel nice. Sitting over here doing that right now. That feels really nice.
Well, I mean, even if you have like a stressful day at work,
Yeah.
school, whatever, I mean, you can do this, and it'll just kind of like, if you do that instead of reacting and getting angry or frustrated, it gives you that second just to reset. And again, all of this is just like a way to deal with like life, because again, that's what we're trying to do on court is, you're just trying to navigate difficult situations, figure things out, and come out, being successful.
Yeah.
So does all that make sense to you? Any questions before I kind of like get into
No, I
more?
love that, and I think you gave good points there for when to use them. In between points, and then you can take that extra drop into the gap. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Yeah, you take that extra one on changeovers. Really calm yourself down, relax.
And with the drop gap, you can also like, I don't with the exhale as much close my eyes in between points, but like if I'm on a changeover and it's stressful, I will just kind of close my eyes. Or you can do the like towel over the head, that's, you still see players do that as well. So, that just kind of gives you, some basic, and there's all types of different kind of breathing. Please don't feel like those are the only two that you should do. Research, find your own. It's all about finding kind of what works for you. There's no, as we get into this routine, no player's routine is exactly the same. And it's been very fun to like hit with other people, see a lot of different people play, to kind of see the different, ways that people prep. And so the first kind of routine people don't even think about is the pre-match. So not only what are you doing? Are you doing cardio? Are you doing stretching, foam rolling? How long are you doing it? How long before you go on the court are you doing it? All of these things are your start of your routine to help you get into the zone, get and find in yours. Because at a certain point, you want to kind of be locked in and starting to prepare for your match. For me, my pre-ritual, if I'm in a tournament, starts on the drive. I have a playlist. I have songs that I like to listen to that help me kind of just start to focus. And as I do that, I believe in visualization as well. So I kind of just see myself, hitting good strokes. I'm not picturing myself winning. Like that's what a lot of people think is like, oh, I'm just gonna picture myself win. No, it's being successful with the shots you want to hit. If you know your opponent, like their backhand is weaker, you're just picturing yourself hitting nice deep balls to their backhand, visualizing how that feels, because that is important. We don't talk about the mind as much as we do warming up the body. And especially in like a tournament, sometimes even the pros don't know when they're going to go on. There might be a retirement, there might be a match that goes long. So they've got to figure out how to deal with all of that. And then the last kind of pre-match that I like to talk about, just the coach in me can't help, is hydration. So how warm is it going to be tomorrow? And the hydration part actually usually starts the night before. Usually depending on how warm it is, I drink between 50 and 80 ounces the day before, not including what I'll start the next morning. And that'll just help your body feel better. I mean, because we all get dehydrated. It does not feel good to cramp. I do not wish that on anybody. And I've got stories of that from college that I can tell another time. But the more interesting is kind of like during the match. So the first time kind of that you have routines in a match is just in between points. So the point ends, you win, you lose, whatever. What do you do? Okay. So for me, it's pretty simple. I have a towel behind me. I've always believed in the towel philosophy. I go back, wipe my face, take a few of those exhale breaths, just reset. I usually don't look at the other side of what he's doing. I just want to focus on myself. So I'll do kind of like, Maria Sharapova used to do it. She'd always turn her back before she did. And that was to help her focus.
And
So
she's writing on
again,
her strings, right? Like
yeah.
she's,
And so
yeah.
that's the other is like the common is like the straighten the strings, which you don't have to do with like polystring as much anymore, but like I still do. Like
Yeah.
it's because it was ingrained from a young age in the 90s, and that's what everybody did. Fix your strings, focus on the strings. All of that is like what you can do in between points. And again, you can decide. The only things I'll say is you want to have the same thing and you want to have something in place. It doesn't have to be very complicated. It doesn't have to be, the exact same movements per se, but it just has to be, okay, towel, breathe, racket. Okay, I'm back,
Yeah. What does that do mentally for you? Because I'm having flashbacks to my high school basketball coach who would tell us, like, I don't care what your routine is before you shoot a free throw. I just care that it's the same thing every time. It's like, I don't care if you're, putting the ball around your head 5 times, make sure it's 5 times. He's like, just do the same thing every single time. So what is a routine like that, between the points, whether you're straightening your strings, wiping off with a towel, some combination of, what does a routine like that do mentally for a player?
it resets you. So it resets you to the to get ready for the next, so that you're not focusing on what just happened, positive or negative. You're not getting ahead of yourself. And your brain knows that you're going back into the same thing. So it knows exactly what you're trying to do. And therefore it's kind of training your brain on what you want to do, which is, again, if we're looking at mindfulness, we can be aware of what's going on, but what we're trying to do is stay away from the judgment of like how could I have missed that backhand? Or for me, yesterday, I had a buddy, I was up 7-4 in the breaker and then 9-8, had the whole court open, went right back to him and lost the point.
Oh
And it's like,
no.
it's hard when you get those moments though, because you're like, all you want to do is like, how could I do that? Like how? But like, if you're still playing, that hurts you because, I mean, you see it, somebody double fault, then they double fault again, or, they make 2 mistakes, and then the next return, they don't even try. It's because they're not
And
resetting
even,
themselves.
yeah, even on the flip side of that, one of the most common times that I see a double fault is after an ace. You know, and so it's kind of a positive judgment almost sometimes that can hinder as well. Because you know, I'm seeing as you're talking now, it's like, okay, yeah, I probably do need, even after the high of hitting an ace, I need to reset so that I'm focused, so that I'm, you know, ready for the next point, so I can do the same thing rather than like, yeah, I just hit an ace and then, you know, kind of not going through that routine, falling off the rails a little bit, and then now hitting a double fault to follow it up. So
Because what did they do after the ace? What do they 90%? They run back up to the line
mhm.
and are like so excited and so pumped up that their body is not ready and not the way that it needs to be for them to be, you know, to
Yeah,
do it again. And then you've basically negated the ace because you just handed back the point instead of 15 love. You know, it's now 15 all, which you're basically at square one again, you know, instead
yeah,
you're just playing first to three.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
it,
No, I
but
really like that.
yeah, so it's interesting because like, yeah, we just overthink. Our brains are just, especially in like Western culture, are just so programmed to overthink because how much, you know, different stimuli do we have? You know, we've got our phones, we've got our computers, you know, we've got our tablets, you know, my car is, you know, has so many toys, you know, like everything. So
Yeah,
like thinking, and that hinders us. And before I get too much, and I'll say this again, if anybody finds this stuff interesting, The Inner Game of Tennis is one of the
yeah,
greatest books ever. And it was written in the 1970s, and it is still probably one of the most relevant books that I've read. I have it on audio. I have you know, I've given away many copies, and I still go back to it because it is so much. And that really is the early part of mindfulness.
yeah.
He was so ahead of his time when he was writing.
Very much so. It's on my bookshelf right over there. It's a
Yeah, it's
good
a
one.
classic. That's a one I always ask. Like when people are like, "I want to learn more. I want the mental." I'm like, "Have you read the Inner Game?" And 90% of them are like, "Nope." Like it's like $12 on Amazon. It's worth it, you know. Like
Absolutely,
so.
absolutely.
So the other time to get back into, you know, the during the match stuff is before the serve, and everybody will always think of one player when they think of, you know, serve routine, and that's Nadal. You know, he has his 45 movements of whatever, yeah, that he does,
Yeah.
but he does them every time.
Yep.
You know, um, mine is much more simple. When I usually go up to the line, before I serve, I'll put my racket in my non-dominant hand. I'll kind of wipe off my hand, put it back. You know, one for the sweat, two because I'm trying not to grip too tight on my, you know, racket. One of the problems why people can't flip their wrist is because they, you know, they grip it too tight and then you kind of push it long. So after that, it's just, you know, I do 1, 2, 3 kind of bounces. And while I'm doing that, I'm doing a couple of other things. Every bounce I breathe. So when it bounces the ground, I'm exhaling. That's just how I go. And as I'm stepping up to do this, I've made up my mind about where I want the serve, and I've seen myself hitting the serve. So I'm, you know, I'm on the ad side. I want to go out wide. I picture myself going there. I get ready. I go, you know, because that's telling my mind where I want it to go. The mind is so much more powerful than most of us realize. So if we can get our mind thinking the right way, it can talk to our body and hit the shots that we know our body can hit. So again, that's kind of like my basic serve. Everybody has a different one. What I usually see with junior players is that there's nothing between first and second serves. And I can tell pretty much always with them when they're going to double fall. I can basically just tell, because I can see the rush happening. And when they rush the second time, everything collapses. The ball goes into the bottom of the net. You know, so it's important to also not only have that first, but the second. For me, again, it's 2 to 3 bounces. I shorten it. You know, I just want to refocus myself. You know, usually on the second, I'll kind of like roll my shoulders back just to try to see if I can like relax myself. Again, it's all just personal, like, but you've got to figure it out and you've got to kind of stick to it. You know, when you only bounce once and then you bounce like 8 times, and then, you know, it's not giving you rhythm. And you've got to think of it kind of like any other sport where you need rhythm. Like, you know, if you're a baseball pitcher, If you're going up in basketball for free throws, like you just have to have that rhythm. If you don't, it's going to kind of throw you all off.
Yeah, and you see that, like you said, with all the other sports. You see it across tennis, but you see it in all the other sports. A pitcher goes up and they have that deep exhale, and a lot of them have a little bit of a routine there. Free throws are always fun to watch, the different routines, across different players. And yeah, it's so critical mentally to just have that, so that it's the same thing every time. And I mean, the routine leads to consistency, right? Like, that's our goal here, is if we have a routine, we're setting ourselves up with the things that we can control, then that's going to hopefully lead to more consistency with the things that sometimes have a little bit more variable to them, right?
Yeah, and we're reprogramming our brain in certain ways. We're taking away that autopilot mode that wants to completely just go awry and overthink. I forgot what the exact phrasing was, but there's somewhere in like Tibet, there's like a saying, it's like having a drunken monkey, in your head basically, or on your shoulder. I forget the exact, or like one on each, but like that's what it's like with our minds that just go kind of like crazy. And so these routines get us to just stop, focus, relax, and prepare for what we need to do, so that we don't have that kind of self-talk that's always kind of happening, and that's what we're trying to just be aware of, but we don't want to let it consume us. Because like, again, you miss a first serve, you know what do most players think? I'll use a different word, but it's, oh no, I don't want to double fault, or don't double
Yeah.
fault. And that's why you see like the push serves in certain
Yep.
levels of play, because they don't want to miss that second serve.
Yeah, I mean, that was me for years, because I always had a big first serve, but I was so scared of missing my second serve. I had no confidence in it, that yeah, it was just the little pancake push serve, right? Like, just get it in. And but no, if we have these routines, we can set ourselves up for more success and have more confidence with it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Confidence in yourself. I mean, no matter what shot you're hitting, like if you go up to a ball and you know in your mind where you're going to hit it as you go to hit it, and you know that you're going to hit that shot, I guarantee you're probably more likely to hit it than if you hesitate. Whenever we have that moment of hesitation, especially like, let's say short balls, like short approach, like you want to try to put it in the corner, but you don't want to try to like overhit it long, you know, you're looking for that kind of like good spot to put it. And that's so easy to miss. But if you go up to it and like, this is where I want, this is where I'm going, I'm going to hit it there, you're more likely, because you don't have that kind of what if, kind of like, oh no, oh crap feeling, you know
Yeah. No, I
so
I love that. I love that.
nothing feels better. Like I hit a volley the other day where it's just like, it was very short, but I was like, I knew where I was going to put it, I didn't panic, and it went exact. I'm like, okay, so I just have to have that confidence. And again, this is all like a work in progress. No one's going to like walk out and master this. I mean, even the professionals still struggle, and that's why you're seeing more admit to working with sports psychologists, and it being kind of more widely accepted, to work with them,
Yeah, which
to
is a
help
great
get
thing.
people's, yeah. I mean, golf players have done it for years. It's another individual sport where
Yeah.
routines are important.
Talk about some pressure on every shot. Those poor golfers.
I know. Um, and so the next one is before the return, which again, so serve is talked maybe about a little bit with the routine, but not the return. So like I like to get like, I usually, get my legs moving. Like, you do a few hops before, you don't have to do anything crazy, but just to make sure your legs are moving, get down into like, whatever your ready position preference is. I like to be split step. So I like to kind of take that other foot around. It's just how I'm comfortable. But like getting into that. And again, if you're playing somebody over and over, where they're going to put the ball on the serve. So you've got to just, again, visualize where you want to put that ball, where it's going to come and meet you, and have confidence and hit it. And like that helps a lot with, the return. I mean, for me, I'm 6'4". My serve should be my better shot. Right now, I'm a better returner. I just am more comfortable and I'm more confident returning. and that shows. But I have a good routine. I have a lot of confidence in my return game and reading people serves, and it pays off, you know.
So, what advice do you have on the visualization? Wow, I really struggled through that word.
Oh, I see it all
Visualization.
day.
There we go. What advice do you have, visualizing that return? If you mentioned, like, if you played someone regularly, you
Yeah,
often have a pretty good idea of where the serve's going to go, or you can at least read their toss. Or what if you're struggling with that? What if you're struggling with that anticipation? What are you visualizing on that return, right? Like, you don't know if it's going forehand, backhand, body. uh, what are you visualizing there?
good contact. I mean, really contact out in front, moving the feet into the ball, because a lot of people on returns, they're flat footed. It is so important to take that first step towards the ball. So, like, I always start a foot or two back from where I'm actually going to make contact, because I know as the ball comes to me, I'm going to make contact. Also gives you a little bit more time. For more advanced players too, like, I visualize hitting like a slice ball. If I don't know where my buddy's going with his big serve on a given day, I'll just stay in continental grip, you know, and just kind of like try to chip back and, just visualize chipping it deep back. But just having confidence of like visualizing yourself just being successful, I guess, is probably the most important part. It's never going to work out 100% of the
Yeah.
time. You have to have confidence. And I also believe in return wise, and again, because it's one of my favorites, and I love it. You have to trust your gut. Like, we second guess, but like, we can read better than what we think we can, and so it's just trusting as you see the person going up, being like, this is where their serve's going to go. And again, not going to be 100% effective, but it's more effective, than people think.
Yeah, I agree, and I think sometimes it's that, it's, we again overthink, and really we just need to trust our mind and trust our reaction, because our brains are picking up so many tiny little visual cues that are, consciously we're not going to be able to do that, but subconsciously, if we've practiced and we've worked, we're going to pick up on some things, and we're going to be able to read things a little better. And so if we can, resist that urge to overthink and just trust in our reactions, like you said, not going to be 100% of the time, but we're going to be more successful that way. I think, we're not going to get caught off guard as often as if we tried to make everything a conscious decision and we thought through every little minor detail, because that's going to slow us down, tighten us up. But if we can relax, let things flow, and trust our initial reactions and anticipations, I think we're going to be better off for it.
And like I said before too, like, yeah, you're right. And our brain's just powerful. That's what we have to realize. There's a lot more going on, and we're still learning, as a human race, exactly how it works. But like, if you trust your gut and knowing, what you're doing, I mean, if you spend enough hours on court, even if you don't think you know how to read people's tosses, I guarantee you probably know how to read them better than you think, because you've spent enough hours on court. You're just not consciously aware of it. You haven't tapped into that, the way that some do. And I mean, but that, and it's a big part, um, Osaka did a great job returning against Serena, like, she confidently struck that ball. There's been times where she looked lost against Serena's serves when they had played previously, but she was confident and she hit some big returns. And that was one of the big difference makers. Is Serena had to work really hard on her serves, and that's not something she's used to doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there other points in a match, moments where we should really be practicing mindfulness, practicing routines? Um, what other areas do we need to be watching out for as players?
Well, definitely changeovers is like one of the other, because that's our longest time to sit down and think. The more we have time to sit down and think and be aware of where we are and what's going on, especially if you're having a really good day, because you don't want to break that zone, is just like, you're just aware, like, you're where you are, you're on the changeover. I like to have snacks. I like to eat, so like, I'll have like a banana or trail mix or something that I can just take a little bit of, and again, it's that deep breath, and just feeling yourself, and just, being aware of your body, of how it feels, where you are, and just, what's going kind of on around you, but you're not like hyper aware. I mean, it's still so fascinating to me to watch how matches change and the points when matches change, because it can be everything and anything, and that's the thing. It's even with college, one court, like one single court of play can change what's happening on the other five courts. I mean, I've seen it happen in all divisions, from like streaming to like watching, and it's amazing. And so, just having that little bit of awareness, because you don't know what's going to turn for your favor or against you. You just have to be, every moment as its own, and just, reset as much as possible. I mean, it's just one point at a time and not worrying. I feel like when I play doubles, the worst somebody can thing to do is be like, okay, just a quick hold here, just a quick hold here. And it's like the game's just starting. The way I work is, okay, give me, like when I work with my partners, just give me 1 point. Give me 1 point right here. Big serve, get it in, let's go, big point. And I'll do that over and over, just 1 point, because it's like, okay, I'm up 4-1 in the set. What if I win this set 6-1, right? And then I go to beat this guy. This guy was seeded, and oh my God, I could beat a seeded player. And now you're sitting in the lobby and you lost, like, because you get so far
Yep.
ahead of yourself. Or negative. I mean, it can be like, how could I lose to this guy? How am I about to lose to this opponent? Like, this is embarrassing. Like, but you're not present. You're not in that moment anymore. You're worried about everything kind of going around you.
Yeah, been there. Played a tournament last summer, and as I played the tournament with my wife. It was her first competitive tennis experience ever, and she did fantastic. And we were in the semifinals, up a break, and my serving for the match. And I double faulted 3 times in that game because I did none of these things that you're talking about and all of the wrong things that you're talking about, and just completely unraveled. I started to think ahead, like, oh my goodness, it's resting on my serve. My serve is great. Like, we're going to be just fine. And I'm thinking ahead to the finals at that point. And next thing you know, 3 double faults and a volley that I dumped into the net. And, we're back on serve and we lost the match after that.
And
So
again,
it's,
I mean, it's that one moment where you're like,
mhm.
again, like I was up 7-4 against this buddy. He hits harder than anybody I ever hit with. And, and he never loses serve. To be up 7-4 in a breaker, practice breaker. Like, yeah, this is awesome. And then I literally lost like 4 straight points, and then like was battled and got my set point, and couldn't close it, had the whole court open and just couldn't figure it out. And again, part of the hardest thing we have to do is be gentle with ourselves, because we're human, we're flawed, we are going to make mistakes. We're not Roger Federer, we're not Nadal, we're not Djokovic. We're out here for fun. We're going to make mistakes. It's how can we learn from those mistakes? What can we take from those without judgment, without being cruel to ourselves, without, any unnecessary kind of meanness, like it's just, because again, it's life. It's going to knock you down, and you've just got to figure out, how to get back up. And that's
Absolutely.
kind of what mindfulness is. And I mean, it is a great tool for, life. And it has definitely been getting more traction as of late. And, it's not something that's easy, because again, we're trying to change our thinking patterns. We're trying to change our behaviors, and that's not something that's going to happen. But if we kind of create these routines, then we're going to be better suited, we're going to be better prepared to kind of deal with this stuff when we have all of these different tools and things to help us kind of cope with everything going on.
Absolutely. Um, this is great stuff. I really appreciate all this. Is there anything else
No, I mean, the last part is just like the post match. I mean, don't analyze
yeah,
yourself too soon, but like, you want to use the mindfulness to be like, wow, like this is how this match went. There's no negative or positive. But, just to kind of go through it with yourself, again, gently, and, without judgment or anger or frustration. That's why sometimes right after is not the best time. You've got
Yeah.
to let yourself calm down. You can, use breathing. You can, get your drinks, do whatever you need to do. But, you want to have those kind of talks with yourself, because you're the only one out there that knows what actually happened within your head. And so therefore you're the only one that can really change it and figure out what you need to do next. But to not kind of have some analysis after with yourself only hurts yourself, because you're not necessarily learning everything. Because sometimes when I think back, I'm like, oh yeah, I did do this a little bit too much, or like I tried to drop shot too much, or I tried to hit off pace shots too much. Or, there's no judgment. It's not like, Chris, how could you hit so many dumb drop shots? Like, like you're floating them 10 feet deep. Like, what's wrong with you? It's like, no, like, I just tried to do this too much. It wasn't working. Next time I just need to figure out, how do I, get out of that? How do I recognize earlier? Because that's all we want to do, right? When we get angry about anything, is just recognize a little sooner. Once we do that, then we kind of can like learn to calm ourselves down a little bit faster. And then we won't get to that like as high escalated period where we may or may not want to smash a racket.
Been there. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think sometimes that's kind of even on a larger scale of what we were talking about with double faults earlier, right? Is, if we get after a match, if we allow ourselves to get too ramped up, we analyze that too soon, we can even enter our next match still worked up about the last one, depending on how much time we've got in between, right? And we can compound that loss with another loss. Um, or same with a win, we can compound, or we can go from that win to not having thought about it and not having taken time to really analyze it. And we can be trying to ride a high that isn't truly there into our next one, and fall apart there. So I think, yeah, that post match mindfulness is every bit as important as we try and progress as players from match to match as well.
And like I said, I mean, there's so much information out on the internet about mindfulness, great reading, not just for tennis, but for life, and all the life stuff can go to tennis, and vice versa. That just, it's helpful, it's it's gentle, it's non-judgmental. So it's not like and there's not really a wrong way to do it. That's the same thing with like meditation. When I, like, my sister can do meditation for hours. I don't have that attention. That's just not who I am, but I can do it for like 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and that's fine. Even that little bit every once in a while reset. So there's just not really a wrong way to do it, as long as you're just breathing, and one of my favorite like quotes ever from like a guided meditation was, if you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. And
I love that.
I just took it to heart, because it's like, because that's, yeah, in the stressful, like, I don't, in tennis, like, I don't feel okay, like everything's going. It's like, you know what, I'm okay, I'm here, I'm standing, like I can get back in, it's 2-5, but I'm still in this, and just being able to kind of like reset that.
Yeah, and then it goes back to the one point at a time mentality, right?
I mean, it's so easy to get ahead of ourselves, because that's just how we're wired, just
Yep.
think the next match, or think about winning the championship, or whatever it is. Even the pros, have those yips sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, at the championship. I mean, there have been double faults, and there have been people that have let matches slip, um, and it's unfortunate, but again, it happens, and it happens to a lot of people, and we kind of have to remind ourselves that we're okay,
Yeah.
and there's always going to be a tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. If you're breathing, there's more right with you than there is wrong.
Yep.
Absolutely love it. Chris, thank you so much. This has been unbelievable. I have really enjoyed learning from you, learning about mindfulness, breathing, routines, all of this. I hope that it's beneficial. I know it'll be beneficial to anyone that listens and takes these things and implements it into the way that you train, the way that you play your matches. I think you're going to see some good results out there. So, Chris, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you and your time today.
Thanks for having me, man. A lot of fun as always.